You're here because you want to see a demonstration of the Shelley grinder, a drill that was coined by my clients who felt like they were going through the grinder. It is a series of timed sprints that help you grind down and crystallize your big idea for any speaking event. The main idea of what you want to share with your audience. So, in this 4-step drill, step 1 is setting the timer for 90 seconds. I've been asked to speak about a workshop on networking. So I'm going to ask myself, what's my big idea? My big idea for this workshop on networking is to show people how they can take what can be an uncomfortable situation of meeting strangers and promoting yourself into actually an interesting conversation, more of building a relationship and letting people learn more about why I do what I do and how I perform as a coach. So if I'm presenting myself as a coach, I want people to know the type of coach I am, less about what I do and what my company name is. Those are important things, but they could find that on my website. I need to make an impression within seconds so people remember me. And you would want people to remember you and perhaps ask more questions and learn more about what you do. So in this networking workshop, I'm going to give you drills to do that, to build a story, share something that's really important to you, and let people understand what type of professional you are, why you do what you do. It's a really interesting way to approach networking because I believe networking can be just another conversation.
Welcome, everyone, to Together We Serve TV show. Remarkable speaking. I got to learn to speak. A framework to embody your voice and vision. Do you have a big idea? Think about it for 5 seconds. What's your big idea? You all have it out there. We all wake up with big ideas, but do you know how to speak it to people? Do you know how to voice your message for your big idea? Well, my guest today I met over a year ago, and it's one of those connections you become friends more than just business friends, but friends. But what I love about her, she's got that servant's heart. She wants to serve people because guess what? We're speaking every day. Even people that are deaf have sign language. Aren't they speaking? Absolutely. I have a friend that's deaf, and I'd love to learn ASL, and maybe someday I will. That's my big idea, and I need to work with Shelley to get that. So let's bring our guest on. Shelley, welcome to the show.
Great to be here, Steve. Thank you.
And that little tidbit, I pulled that out because on audience, I've read her book. I finished it this morning. I wanted to get it done. It is unbelievable. I've taken resources and tips and advice from your book and shared it with 100 other people and changed their lives.
Wow.
Why did you write this book?
I wrote the book because people like you were sharing the information and thought it was so amazing. How can I read about this all the time? How can I have access to what you're sharing with me as far as these drills and techniques to help people become better speakers? So writing the book is that, but on a bigger scale, we all deserve the right to express ourselves. So a book, now having a book, anybody, especially somebody who doesn't have access to coaching classes, can have access to embody their voice and their vision, because when you embody your voice and your vision, when you speak up, that's when we can really change the world.
And changing the world is what Together We Serve is all about. And I think that needs a lot needs to be done today because the world is a mess. We know that. We can't control that, but we can control our speaking. When you wrote the book, what was your intention for people when they read it?
To feel like I am coaching you. It's not I'm not telling you what to do or how to do it or you have to do it. I'm not adding more pressure to an already uncomfortable situation. I wanted it to feel like you're in the room with me and I am coaching you live. And it's interactive and you feel like you have actionable takeaway skills and drills that you can do to improve your speaking.
Well, interesting. We got a question already, and we're already 6 minutes in. So the question is, what is one takeaway you hope readers gain from your book? Similar to what you just said, but takeaway might be a little different thought.
Speaking is something you do every day. And you started to talk about this in the beginning, Steve, but if you look at every interaction, every speaking opportunity, and I mean sending an email, I mean speaking to a friend over coffee, maybe it's just a work meeting or simply a lunch with a business associate. All those are speaking opportunities and they're conversations. And when we approach every talk, from that to being on a stage, to presenting to the board of directors, to being in front of a live audience, when we look at it as a conversation, it de-escalates the tension. You realize you're just sharing information.
Oh my God, the crowd's going crazy. I'm not surprised. So a thought came to my head.
Yeah.
A lot of your book, I know it's so great, and that we've talked to people, you talk about, how to really connect with people, how to get your story. But how do you teach the conversations that are negative, the arguments, the disagreements? Because that's a unique way of conversing, chatting, talking as well, right?
Absolutely. I feel everybody deserves the right to self-express, but it doesn't mean everybody's going to agree with what we say. And you mentioned this too. You can sort of control what you deliver as a message, but you can't control how others feel or how they may understand it. So the key to bridging that gap is being curious. And the book starts out that way. When you aren't sure or you want to know more information, or even if somebody says something that you don't agree with, ask questions. How did you come to that idea? What made you think that way? Tell me more about that process. You're showing interest, and you're also getting to the bedrock of how that person understands something. Now, I might learn something in doing that. I hope I do. But also it becomes a conversation, and the interest, the person understands you're not going to challenge them on that idea necessarily. You're going to have a conversation and share new ideas. And if a challenge comes up, it's from a very different perspective of a healthy debate versus a tense kind of debate.
That's so well said, because that is, I think a lot of people can have conversations when it's positive and all that, but it was when that negative happens or they're hard to do. With the book, what I loved about is the workbook. A book with the workbook, and you tie in your website to that. Talk about how you do that with the book.
So back to the fact that when you read the book, I wanted to feel like you were being coached. When I coach my clients for real, that's exactly what I do. We have worksheets, there's drills and exercises for immediate takeaways, immediate experiential scenarios. So it's not like read it now and maybe next week you can talk about it. No, I want you to read the chapter, do the exercise, put the book down, and go out and actually put it into practice right away, because you can in real life. Like I mentioned, you're going out with a friend for drinks, you're speaking to a barista at a coffee shop, you have to talk to the board of directors. Yes, take it right into that. And the best way to do that, to take it into real life, is to have the workbook, give you something tangible to do. And not only is that interactive, but this is how you build and rewire your neural pathways to learn new behaviors. That's how it works. So the more you do that in the book, the more I walk you through that, that is an integral part of you not only learning this, but developing a new behavior so you feel comfortable, you feel confident all the time when you're speaking. you know how to manage those nerves.
Yeah, and you made a great point. As you were talking, repetition is a big part of the book. I read a couple things over and over again, and I remember them. And when I met with you before the show, you're like this. You're like, I remembered that, and you're like, okay, he read the book. Not that I, a liar or anything like that, but it's because retention was the word I was thinking of before the show. The retention of your book is so much more seamless than Think and Grow Rich, which we talked about. You got to read multiple times. Nothing wrong with the book. I love the book. It's got great content. But with yours, you seem to retain the information better and can take action quicker.
Absolutely.
Was that the goal?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not successful unless every single person that reads the book or every client I work with is successful. Did they achieve their speaking goals? Are we ascending on their speaking journey? And I really follow up. I have in my private coaching, I have between our sessions, I have weekly check-ins, 15 minutes, boom. And we measure how the speaking is impacting their business life, because it's really catered to a lot of business, although you easily could take this into personal life. And that's what makes the difference is they could, once they have that measurement, no one's going to argue with their own data. And you show them how, like, for example, I worked with a team. This was fantastic not too long ago, where we reduced their meetings. They had about 10 meetings a week. They reduced them from 60 minutes to 30 minutes. That is about a 19% savings of time that they reclaimed in their week. The team did. You multiply that over the year, it's 49 days on a calendar year. Multiply that by everybody's salary. I mean, do the math. Look how the numbers, your 5 and 6 figure numbers that you're actually reclaiming in time that you can use to have better conversations that are more pointed and directed. You're maybe using that time to do your work and the things you love to do. Maybe you're taking time off to go fishing. Whatever it is, when you see that quantifiable number, now I know that the program is working. You know the coaching is working, and it's not just fluff in the sky. It's not just make-believe.
Yeah, I listen to a gentleman, Darren Hardy, every morning. He's a Success Magazine. He's interviewed Tony all very successful. He was talking about that today, showing you every 80% or 85% of meetings are way too long, costing millions a year in corporate and business, even the small businesses, and they don't get to the point. That's where you help. If I was putting a meeting on, I could go through Remarkable Speaking, use your framework and go, and that 30-minute meeting becomes a 15-minute meeting. We get everything done, and we move on to our work, right?
Without a doubt. I have another client who works in an investment fund, and he said his meetings now are 5 minutes, 5 priorities. Boom, boom, boom. Because his board of directors, they don't want a full-on story. They want to get right to the point. They want the most essential information in, out. And for the additional time, if say the meeting's 30 minutes and he spent 15 minutes, he's telling me he's using that additional 15 minutes to go deeper, to take the conversation and the relationship building piece deeper, get into more specific ideas around the project, as opposed to wasting the time figuring out, what do we say? What's the point of this discussion? So yes, there's a very big part of this on how to run meetings and be more succinct and efficient. So you can apply that to giving a presentation. You don't need 100 slides. You could do it in 3 slides. You can use it to writing an email. You can use it for a podcast. What questions do I want to ask the people? How can I interview better? This framework is so adaptable to any speaking opportunity, anything, even a conversation with friends. It changes everything.
And I've never heard, and I could be wrong, Shelley, a company that went out of business because their meetings were too short. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. No, because that's the cool thing about that 15 minutes. If they're done, well, the board goes and they go out their way and they're happy, like, oh, God, I got to stay another.
Very, very. Can you imagine you're going back to closing more deals and doing the work that you're really hired to do? So it's really important.
So I talk to introverts. a few of them just this past month. How does this work for an introvert? Because they're all like, I can't do a podcast. I can't do the sales call. I can't because they're afraid to speak. What do you tell them?
There is a segment in the book on labels.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm not saying they're not important. There are things where we have clinical diagnoses, but if we stand behind extrovert, introvert, and any other label we're thrown at, I'm asking you to ask yourself the question, is that a roadblock? Now, let me go back to myself. I am a social butterfly. People say I'm an extrovert. I love a party. So what happened when I got up on that stage and I couldn't speak? I was so tongue-tied. I was so frozen when I had to present. My mind went blank and nothing came out of my mouth. Miss Social Butterfly, Miss Loves a Party, couldn't speak. So I thought about that label. Are the labels holding us back? Is that fear, the idea, I'm fearful, I'm scared of what's in front of me, I'm an introvert, is that holding me back? Maybe. And maybe there's a way to work through that. And in the book, I help you understand that sometimes what's going on inside our heads, our own inner dialogue, is most likely not what's happening in the outside world.
Yeah, our mind lies to us all the time. 95% of the time, it's lying to us, and we got to fight through that. So I want you to tell the story, because that leads to the story I read this morning, so it's very fresh. The wedding story. When that friend of yours, that's a perfect time. You're a professional speaker, and I'm reading this story, and I want you to tell it. Tell the story. I'm not going to ruin it. Go tell the story. It's a great story.
It's fun, and I just had dinner with the couple last week, as a matter of fact. We were laughing about the story. We still do. I went to a friend's wedding. It was great, and of course, there's the time when people have to give a toast. And the first name they call is Shelley Goldstein to come up and give a toast. I literally was like a deer in headlights. I was caught so off guard. I was so panicked. I was like, wait a minute, what am I going to say? Wait, what's happening? I barely knew the groom. I had met him maybe a couple of times, but I really didn't know him. And of course, the bride was my dear friend. I'd known her for years, but what was I going to say that mattered to this group? So I get up, the room's clapping and cheering me on. I walk to the front. I'm telling you, my knees were knocking, my hands, palms were sweating. I was shaking and doing everything I could on that walk, which felt like 1.5 miles across a room. I was like, do some breathing. You can do this. Calm yourself down. And I got there and I thought of a moment where how I met the groom for the first time, which was through a phone call where I called him out of the blue to, connect me or refer me to some job interview that I had, and he happened to have a contact there. So it was kind of like off the cuff, and I even made a joke that here I am, a professional speaker, and what am I going to say? But once I went into the story and the moment, it flowed very naturally. Everybody was very happy. The couple was like smiling on in admiration, and I was walking back to the table. People were cheering me on. What a great speech. That's a great, oh my gosh, you're so good at this. So I guess I pulled it off.
You pulled it off. You were, yeah.
It was
and that was magic. One more time. Magic. Story, and listening you tell the story, which is different than in the book, you hear it differently, is your practice of the workshop, the framework in the book. If people grab the book and practice it, don't just read it once or just do the workshop once. Practice it like when I go to the gym later this afternoon, I'm lifting weights. It's the same thing with your speaking. That's why you could jump up there last minute and go, and work right through it, right? So talk about the practice of this.
So the practice isn't intended to be, the last thing I wanted to do was say, okay, you have to carve out an hour out of your day, 6 hours out of your week, a special designated practice time. Again, you don't want more stress when you're already stressed out speaking. So the framework, it's 4 minutes, and it could actually go down to a minute's time once you start really adapting to it. But when you go to the gym, Steve, and you're lifting weights, you can look around the room and look at somebody across the room doing a different machine that you're not familiar with, or you have never seen them do that particular workout before, and go up to that person, and here's the practice. Just ask them a question. Tell me, have you been doing that move for long? I've never seen it.
Yeah.
People love to communicate and share their information and stories, and when you acknowledge them, there's a good feeling. The good hormones kick in. Somebody noticed me. It's like a little accolade or a little gold star, and that's using the framework. Just what do I want to ask that person? What's my big idea? I want to know how to use that machine. You walk right over. Now that's using the framework in your daily life. Same thing before you get into a meeting with your colleagues, okay? What do I want them to know for this meeting? What's my big idea? You establish that, go through the drill in less than 4 minutes. When you get to that meeting, you at least know what it is you want everybody to know about that particular message you have to deliver. This is using the framework or practicing with your already busy schedule, doing things you're already doing. It's not a separate thing. And that's another brilliant, beautiful thing about the timed sprints of the framework that works so beautifully, which is something that I was inspired by the book Sprint, which many people use to fast track prototyping. So I applied it to speaking, and it really is what changes everything.
Yeah, 4 minutes a day. We had a brief, if you missed it, go back to the recording. We had a brief video that we showed at the beginning. It talks about your Shelley Grinder. Love that name. Sounds like a band. We're a part of Shelley Grinder's band, but speaking, this framework can be in any language too. If I speak Spanish, works the same way, right?
You know, I'm sure it, yes. I mean, I work with people all over the world. I mean, it's 5 continents, and I've lost count after 50 some odd countries, but I've only coached people in English because that's honestly the only language I know. But when they get into this short, quick sprint, and there's very little time to think, they have the language skills to get out the words. So I haven't asked anybody, but it would be a good thing for me to have somebody do it in their language and see if it works. I can't imagine that it wouldn't.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a framework. It's like if you're playing soccer or football in Europe, no different than American soccer. It's just a different country because the framework of playing soccer is the same in both places. The rules are a little bit different. But yeah, I can see that. And I want to put that out there because that's the power of what you're doing. You really can work with anybody in the world.
I do. And it shows also that the highly adaptable framework works across languages, countries, industries, types of speaking events, cultures. You can find those subtle nuances where what's appropriate for this particular group. Only you know that. But you can bring gravitas. You can bring a boldness about yourself and an honesty in communicating, because it's been proven even cross cultures, people still want to be acknowledged. And so speaking up and getting that accolade is going to help. There's different degrees of it, but that's why it's important to really speak your voice and participate.
Yeah, I didn't think about it. That's well said. Everybody wants to be seen. It's just a different culture. You do it a different way. You know, America has their way, Asia has their way, Europe has their way. Besides the accent, there's ways, and then you need to learn that. But still, it's all the same. We're coming up halftime here, so we'll give you a break here. But a big part of the book, which we've talked about a lot, me and you, we've talked, is storytelling and the framework around that. And people going, I don't have a story. You say it in the book. People have come to me, I don't have a story to tell. And within 5 minutes, you have somebody's story. That's important. Talk about that.
Very important. I actually coached a young entrepreneur who was, I think, a multimillionaire by the time he was 27, college dropout. And when he sold his company, he said, I have nothing to talk about. People want me to be on panels and write articles for magazines. What am I going to say? Right? Well, it's his whole journey. I bet you're asking right now, how did he get that million? How did he come up with this idea? Where did it come from? Those are stories. So one of the drills is called, you look for your speaking opportunities. What are the opportunities I'm going to speak in, but what are the stories that I can tell? What are my experiences like? What are my experiences in my life? What are things I've gone through, articles I've read, things that happened to me as a kid when I was on a sporting team or learning music? Those translate directly to who you are today. They help shape you with who you are today and help build the legacy. So one of the drills helps you distill down those examples and stories, and you create a story bank. So you have those anytime you need something to talk about.
The story bank blew me away in the book.
Oh, really?
Because, well, here's why. You don't know this, so I'm going to put this out publicly. I've done 200 podcast guest appearances. I've been on radio and I've been on TV.
Wow.
Because when we met the very second time, you talked about stories. I didn't know about storyboarding yet, but you told me find your stories. And I say the same, flip them out, the same stories about how I met this guy at 19, made me 68,000. And I have become an incredible guest. And I'm saying that proudly because of you. People like, I had this guy, I was on ABC radio yesterday. And I don't want to talk about me because it's about you, but this is about you. I got on there a little bit nervous, kind of like your wedding thing. And this guy's interviewed Alex Hormozy, big time people.
Yeah.
Holy man, come up with stories. He's like, amazing. He's right here. It got done. He goes, Steve, it's one of my best shows.
Wow.
Because of stories and audience. Yeah, I'm promoting her and selling her a little bit, I guess a lot, but stories do work. And if we're alive, we have a story. I woke up this morning. That's a story, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I could.
Yeah, it goes on and on.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Storytelling has been around since it was the first way we communicated. First, we did it with, pictograms on caves. It goes back thousands of years. So why would we not bring up stories today? And people say, well, it's a workplace. But think about it. If you're reporting data, and I talked about the numbers, the ROI, and where people save time in meetings, but I brought a story about real people that it happened to and how they cut down their meeting time. It was the story that made it interesting. Now, maybe a number pops out as well, but I didn't just recite the facts and the figures. You bring it around something that people could relate to and connect. That's why we love movies and books and songs and poems, because they take us to a place that we can connect to or dream of. And so stories makes everything relatable. And again, it's your legacy. It makes you different and unique. And you're not just talking about features and benefits. Anybody could read that on the box top. There's lots of speaking coaches out there. What makes me different? It's my stories and how I process.
And we'll go to break after I ask you. There was a quote in your book about, I think it was Andy Warhol, but it said about being yourself. Be yourself because nobody else will be like you. I'm blowing up the quote, but it was about there's nobody like you.
Right. Be yourself because everybody's taken.
That's it. Say it one more time.
It's part of your legacy. Be yourself. Oscar Wilde said it. Be yourself because everyone is taken. And
jeez.
Many, many people come to me and want, I want to be Steve Jobs. I want to speak like Steve Jobs. Somebody who's a confident business owner, CEO, they run Fortune 100 and 500 companies. I want to be like, no, Steve Jobs has a job. His legacy is taken. Let's dig into yours. Like the young multimillionaire who sold his company. What was your journey that made your rise through the ranks unique? That's why TED Talks are so popular, for goodness sakes. We all want the story, the hero's journey, and we all have that for better and for the failures as well.
Yeah. You be humble and tell people how you screwed up. People want to hear that because it makes you human.
Absolutely.
You human. And Marvel's a multi-billion-dollar company because the stories they tell. I love Marvel because I love their stories. You're so right. All right, let's take a break. We'll take about a 5 to 8 minute break. Let's get her some water. She's been a rock star. And we'll come back to Together We Serve Remarkable Speaking, a framework to embody your voice and vision. We'll see you guys in a bit.
Start with a timer. You'll speak your big idea in 60 seconds. Then you grind it down to 30 seconds. Can you say the same message in 30 seconds? Then you go back up to 60 seconds. What happens is within that free flow time of having the pressure force you to say what you really feel or what you really mean in such a short amount of time in those sprints, mic drop moments happen. You'll say the most profound things that are deep, deep in your subconscious, that are creative, that are there. And those words just transcend to have greater meaning. You can't write the way you speak unless you're a script writer, a professional script writer. They have a specific talent for that. But most of us, when we write a script, it comes out a little forced. It sounds a little too professional or too much like, a white paper. And nobody wants to hear that. But when you let yourself go and do these sprints to just speak one rep after the other with constraints of time, that's where the magic happens and the words flow.
I like that. Or you would think like the longer, if I have to give an hour long keynote, like, no, get it in 2 minutes. Like, whoa, that's so hard.
How about 30 seconds? I mean, I start with 90 seconds. We go down to 60, we go down to 30. And I've been doing this for years. And I cannot tell you how the pressure of time just forces your brain to get there in ways that you can't even imagine. You're in that flow state. You're in that higher level of consciousness that could drive you there. And that's what's so magical. You're not overthinking. There's no time to ponder or hesitate. Boom. Because it's what you know. It's there. It's stored in your temporal lobe in the back of your brain. It's your memories, your experiences. It's what you know and what you remember. And when you release that, again, that's where the magic of the mic drop moments happen, from the constraints of time. And it can be done. And once you crystallize your big idea, your process in 30 seconds, you know it so well, you can talk about it for 2 hours, a half day immersion, a full day seminar, 20 minutes. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's like, okay, so with my audience, I have a lot of career changers, right? And they feel like the resume is the issue. And it's the thing that they're going crazy over. But it's like, you're more valuable than that. And when I say that to them, it hits them. When I tell a career changer that, I'm like, you are so much more valuable than the words on your resume. It hits them.
and all your experiences and stories and mic drop moments in the world that you've experienced, that transcends beyond the words. That's the meaning behind the words, because they want to see your X factor. They want to see who you are, what type of employee you're going to be, what kind of colleague you're going to be, what type of, designer you're going to be, or marketer, or can you lead with compassion? Are you a critical thinker? All those things come from between the lines of the resume. Well, Byron Katie has a great quote. She said, "You can get anything you want if you accept 1,000 no's." And imagine if you started out your day by saying, how many no's can I get? How many no's can I get? That's your objective for the day. You would be surprised at how, one, it's like, wow, I've accomplished something. I got 3 no's, but you'd be surprised how many of those will actually be yeses.
What I don't want is this like,
How many no's did you get today? I didn't expect that. I pull videos up, and I mean, that's crazy. It's a mindset thing. And what I love what Shelley's doing is teaching you how to speak, but it's through your mind and your heart. It's just not reading a book and going, I'm going to read this script or this. I do my podcast and I do this show without any script, just talk. And we've talked about that. She loves that. And that's why she's a great guest on here. Let's bring her back. Welcome back, Together We Serve. And there's the lovely Shelley. Welcome back.
Thank you.
You get any no's while we were gone?
Of course, of course.
Yeah.
What's so, you talk about the servant's heart, and that's why the framework is a framework to embody your voice and your vision. When you embody something, that's the emotional connection. That's the deep feeling. Otherwise, you're just saying words. Otherwise, you're just reciting a script. And I mentioned it in one of the clips. Unless you're a professional actor or you're a professional writer, you can't do these things. We are humans. We are not, I'm not out for an Academy Award. I'm not a trained actor. But if you express yourself by embodying how you really feel about something, wow, I really loved that time when I was on the show with Steve. I don't have to fake that. That's true. I'm having a good time. I'm laughing. And not only does it help you deliver a natural, organic, emotional expression of what really happened, but you don't have to worry about memorizing anything, because you're reflecting on that story that you've lived through.
Let's talk about Shelley, the coach. You've been so kind to me and coached me. Like I told you, I'm a guesting, and I would be scared to be on what am I going to say on a podcast? I could talk about my podcast at that point. I relish it. I just asked to be on somebody's big podcast. They might say no. I'm going for a no. I'm going to go for a no. They say yes. I have no problem being on, like the show yesterday, ABC Radio. I have no problem. I know I'm impacting somebody. And when you come with that heart tied to it, it makes it easier. We've got questions flying in here. I don't know what you've done, but people are flying to learn more. This is the first one that came in. What inspired you to find? You need Grammarly, by the way, whoever wrote this. What inspired you to find remarkable speaking?
Well, you showed a few clips about the Shelley grinder, and it was really funny because that came out because I would say again, now go from 90 seconds down to 30, and again. And my clients would say, working with Shelley is like going through the grinder, and they started calling it the Shelley grinder. I kid you not. That's how the whole thing came out. So when I started really working on my own and coming up with an idea, it was like, well, I don't want to call a company the grinder. What's the greater aspiration here? And how can I share this with people? So putting that into a system, into a framework, and then remarkable speaking was really the end goal. Be a remarkable speaker. This is it. Because remarkable is such a fantastic word. It's such an expressive way to be. Excellent, yes. Fantastic, yes. But remarkable is used in such a different way. I felt it was a great end result for people, an aspiration, a place to be. Be the speaker you want to hear.
It's a beautiful name. I love that because it really calls to action. It's really good. Well, you've done this. Well, let's do this. I know you've told us a lot of stories, but somebody wants to know a success story from someone you coached.
Oh,
I know you got many of them.
I have plenty of them. I'll take one that I just worked with today, this morning. My client was not prepared for a meeting, and it turned out that they were to have. She was told it was going to be a meeting at in a conference room, totally unprepared for it. But then they switched it on top of it to a car. They had to travel from point A to point B. So now this meeting went from, talk about, unexpected situations, to a car. You're sitting in a vehicle and there's all kinds of other ambient sounds and things going on. And while she was walking from the conference room to the car, she thought to herself, the framework, what do I want this person to know? What's an example? And why is it of value that I'm bringing this up? And by the time she got to that moment, and the example being her story, here's what I want you to know, for example, was her story. Within less than a minute's time, it totally changed the whole dynamic and set the tone for this car ride.
Wow. So you're on somebody's shoulder and you don't even know it. You're that little angel on their shoulder when they're doing stuff, which is really cool. It's funny too how I said that, but no, it's real. And that to me is the stamp of approval for a coach, when you can coach them when you're not there.
And that's exactly what the book is about. I want you to have this tool that you can use, because I'm not going to be there when you're in the conference room. I'm not going to be there when you're having a difficult conversation with a partner or a loved one. I'm not going to be there when you're afraid to order a coffee or afraid to raise your hand in front of, an all hands meeting. And I give you the tools in the book. It's my gift to humanity. Because if we could all communicate the way we feel, and we can all have compassion about that and have this conversation of, I'm sharing information, please share your information. Now we have a dialogue to build on. And it's de-escalating, it's deflating, it's getting rid of your anxieties. It's just putting everybody on the same ground, because more than likely, most people are rooting for you in that conference room or that stage. They want you to succeed, just like I do. But our inner dialogue could fight that.
Yeah. This is one of my favorite questions. You've answered it, but you're going to probably answer there. What techniques do you use to build confidence in speakers? Because I talk to a lot of people that are afraid to speak, even at networking. They're afraid to do their elevator pitch.
Well, one of the key things is, before you have a talk, get to know the people in the room. So, for example, before your speech starts, walk around the room and just ask some people, what brings you here today? What part of the business are you engaged in? And by asking a couple of questions, you build a familiarity. And by the time you get to that podium where you have to give your presentation, you know some people in the room. You know who you're speaking to. You have some ideas, and there's a familiarity. And a great way to practice that in real life is go into a grocery store and turn to somebody next to you and look in their cart and ask them about something in their cart. Hey, are those chocolate chip cookies as good as I hear they are? I've never bought them before. Just a random person, random conversation. That's a great way to start a conversation out of nowhere. And before you know it, you'll maybe have learned to have a great cookie, and you've met a friend along the way.
That's a really cool practice. My practice, I tell people, which is tied to this, look at people's name tags and use their name all the time.
Yeah.
Grocery clerk. Hey, Tony, thank you for packing. Tony, have a great day. Instead of have a great day. It's cool when you say somebody's name. It's all back to what you're talking about, seed. So let's take that scenario you just talked about. I know people are thinking this. When a person gets angry with me and they snip back at me, what do I do then?
Give me a little more context. Are you just, I don't know, where is this?
No, so the grocery, we use the grocery. I lean over and go, man, those Chip Ahoys, I've heard they're good. My wife talks about, are they really that good? I go, hey, dude, it's none of your business. Why are you asking me that? Now, it's not going to happen a lot, but it does happen when somebody has a bad, whatever scenario. How do we handle that situation?
And it goes back to the nose. We can't control how people are going to respond. We can't control if they're going to think you're a cool or interesting person. And do the polite thing. Terribly sorry. But that's a reason to apologize and step off. But at least you made the attempt to speak. And somebody told you how they felt, and you respond in kind. No worries, friend. I get it. More than not, as you said, people will be thrilled you acknowledge them, but it's impossible. It's impossible to prepare any presentation, any talk, send an email, and know how somebody's going to respond in that moment. So that's the way you have to be prepared to take that in. This was not the right moment. And sometimes when you're speaking, you can actually read the room with people. And maybe you look at the person and you think maybe that's not the right person, without judgment. It's not a judgment. It's just a sense of feeling this could work or not. But that's part of life too. It happens.
Well, and that's interesting because it's a different result, but same benefit.
Absolutely.
You know, the first one is, yeah, I like the cookie. And they go, oh, yeah, it's right. The other one's like, hey, it's none of your business. Same benefit. You've reached out to somebody because that's life. Not everybody's going to be roses and unicorns and pink elephants.
No.
We've all run into that. And people listen, I know you've run into that. And that's why I love what you do. You bring life practicality to all this because this will happen. How do we respond?
That's right. That's right. Not every conversation is going to be a great one. There's many times where a lot of leaders have to lay people off or deliver some bad news. Mm-hmm. You can acknowledge them by something good they've done, but you've got to be honest. Look, this is not going to be easy. I've got some bad news to deliver. But when you get right to it quickly, they appreciate it, or they're not sitting there building up some kind of anxiety, making it worse because you're beating around the bush, spending 20 minutes explaining why things are not going way. Get right to it and then have the conversation. Let me explain why. But always be curious. That's another thing I talk about in the book. It's not necessarily about what we say all the time. It's not always about my words. Sometimes the best speakers listen. Sometimes they ask questions to learn about the other person's point of view. Again, every interaction, think of it as a conversation. What information can I learn? What can I know? What can I share? And that's very different than talking at people. That's very different than, overwhelming somebody with a really long story. It's being curious and interested, and that'll help too.
Yeah. Well, I've got above me here, Ted Lasso, be curious, not judgmental. Yeah. I love it. I had to grab and put it up there because it's huge in any aspect of your life. I'm a podcast host, TV show host, you're a coach. We always have to be curious. That's how we bring value to people. Go ahead.
So that goes to the quote, right? Curiosity killed the cat. But the second part of that is satisfaction brought the cat back. Back to what you were saying earlier. The fact that the cat actually was curious and took that risk paid off. Because they grew from it personally, and either they got what they needed or they learned, at least they were able to have the gumption to try, to go out there and challenge themselves. There's a win-win.
Yeah, across the board. Definitely a win-win. Well, we're coming to the end here. You've been an absolute incredible guest. I've done 200 of these TV shows, and I can only think of one other guy. I think John Mitchell, who I introduced you to, you both were so you care about people, and it shows. And that's when we do business, if we're doing that, all the money we make is so worthwhile. It's like Christmas in the morning because you're giving gifts back and forth. How can people reach you? I'm going to pull the book up again. What's the best way for people to reach out to you?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn. I have a YouTube channel. You can look up Remarkable Speaking. Coach Shelley is there with lots of videos. And the book is at remarkablespeaking.com. It's on Amazon, and you can Google it in many different places. That's a great way to find me.
Yeah, it's huge. So let's end. We did this on the podcast, but we're going to change the end question here. So I've just reserved a Learjet for you. Two things. You get 4 seats. I'll be the co-pilot, so I get to be there. But you've got 3 empty chairs. Who are you going to fly with whether they're alive or not, dead or alive, to sit and talk to for a few hours or many hours. And what is your destination for the Learjet? You could go anywhere in the world. Where would you want to go with these people?
We save this for the end. I'm going to need more time to think about it. But
You got 30 seconds, but no pressure. No, I'm kidding.
there's a short story in the book where I talk about my ballet teacher who had signed a book for me as a 5-year-old dancer, telling me, I was very creative and I was going to be an amazing dancer. She has since passed away. I would love to have her back and ask her, what did she see? How did she know? That would be one very interesting conversation. This is really difficult. When I think of people, there's somebody that works for an organization that basically ghosted me and didn't respond to any of my calls after being deeply curious about working with me. I would love to have a conversation to learn why. And it could be anything, and I'm fine with it. It could still be a no, but I would just want to know why. What didn't connect when others have connected? I always am looking to learn. And I would love to have Jose Andreas on the plane because I love to cook. And he is so, he eats, breathes, and lives, he lives to eat. He doesn't eat to live. And he is the embodiment of food. And I just love his whole expression. I mean, I've seen him on a cooking show talk for 20 minutes about a tomato, and I was fascinated by every second. So I would love to learn more about him and that journey and apply it to other areas of my life. And where we would go, I'd love to go to the Amazon and explore things about nature, be curious about what's there that I don't know and haven't seen.
Animals like crazy, the beautiful animals. Oh, what a trip. Well, Shelley, thanks again for taking the time, serving my audience. I knew you would. We're going to bring her back in a few months because a lot more we can talk about.
Oh.
But with that being said, thank you for watching. Reach out to her, get the book. I've read it. I'll read it again and again. We'll see you next Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. Together We Serve TV show. Have a great rest of the day. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk soon. See you, everybody. Thank you, Shelley.
Bye.